I'm writing this script with still one game left in the 2024 season for the Colts, but no matter what happens against the Jaguars, not much is going to be changed, so this video is still going to be relevant. What needs to be done is still going to need to be done. So let's get right into who needs to be fired and who doesn't. I do have a little bit of a dilemma. While a change does need to be made at general manager, I don't know what that would mean for Shane Steichen or Anthony Richardson. While I do still think Chris Ballard is a good general manager, what he has done has run its course in Indianapolis. Running it back is not working at all. Players are aging and starting to bicker with the media and fans. Overall, it's just time for a change of scenery. I personally would like to keep Shane and Anthony. They work really well together and should be given some more time to develop. I'm not saying for sure Anthony Richardson is going to pan out as a quarterback, but I want to see what he has. I like him as a quarterback. He has great work ethic and has taken all the criticism that everybody has given him and not complained or whined about it once. I mean, players with his potential and athleticism do not come around all the time. In this situation, we have the chance to see a what-if scenario actually play out. If we cut him now and bench him and whatever, we're always going to be left with a, well, what if we started him? What if we let him develop? So instead of letting the what if happen, let's actually see what he has. So a big part of the question that needs to be asked for potential general managers is if they will keep Anthony Richardson and Shane Steichen. Now, Shane has been in the game for a minute, so he probably has personally some general managers that he would like to see hired. I would not be mad if the Colts went to Shane and said, hey, who do you want us to hire, or included him in the interviewing process, but whoever we can hire that's going to actually get the job done and still believe in Shane and Anthony would be my pick. And to go back to talking about Anthony Richardson a little bit, people have been calling him soft. They've been saying that he isn't playing through injury and he's not like the other quarterbacks that we've had. Can someone please remind me what happened to both of our franchise quarterbacks who played through injuries and how that ended their career in Indianapolis? Because for both Peyton Manning and Andrew Luck, it did not turn out well. I'm not saying that you should always sit out or you should always be scared to play through injury. But if Anthony Richardson plays through injuries and it comes back to bite him later on, people are going to call him injury prone. But if he sits out and tries to get healthy, they call him soft. So it's a lose-lose situation for the guy. I mean, at that point, you're just kind of determined to not like him. Another guy that needs to be fired is Gus Bradley. But I actually want to show you what's wrong with his defense instead of just criticizing him with no solution. I know as Colts fans, we talk about how bad Gus Bradley is at his job as a defensive coordinator. And to the few people who defend him, and I did defend him for a little bit, I mean, we're talking about the same guy who was a defensive coordinator for the Legion of Boom. One of the responses that I saw was, you aren't in the NFL, you aren't as smart as him. If you were, you'd be doing his job. And you know what? That's a fair enough criticism. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to show you what I would do in certain situations as opposed to what Gus Bradley does. I'm just going to lay it out there on the line. I'm going to put my football knowledge up against his football knowledge. Obviously, he has more, but I'm just going to say what I would do. And to the people that see this in the comments, feel free to criticize whatever coverages I come up with. You know, I'm open to criticism on this. I know that different coverages have different weaknesses. No coverage is perfect. Whether you're running a 3-4, a 4-3, a 3-3-5, a 50 front, it doesn't matter. Everything's going to have its weakness. So in this specific play that we're looking at, I'll show you a closer picture here. Show you a closer picture probably as I explain it. So you've got your weak side defensive end, your strong side defensive end are stand up. They're not in a 3-point stance, they're not in a 4-point stance, they're stand up defensive ends. Your nose tackle and your defensive tackle are right in between what looks like right in between the tackle and the guard. Your weak side boundary corner and your strong side boundary corner are both 1 yard off the ball, basically pressing their guys. And it looks like Jalen Jones is pressing the X receiver on the weak side, but Sam Womack is actually pressing the slot right here. And Kenny Moore, your slot corner, which is 3 yards off the ball, is head up over the X receiver on the strong side. You also have this tight end here, so they're in 11 personnel. Your Will and your Mac, this would be EJ Speed and Zaire Franklin. Now, when they only have 2 linebackers, I don't know what terminology they use. Zaire could become the strong side backer in this situation, and they just go Will and Sam instead of having a Mac, because there's really no Mac, because your strong side backer becomes Kenny Moore at that point, because that's the spot that he's taking as the slot corner. But whatever terminology they use, they're both 6 yards off the ball. This is fairly normal. When you're running with 5 defensive backs, this is fairly regular. You know, nobody's out of place here. The problem comes when, now this is 3rd and 8. So you're looking at 3rd and long, empty backfield. They're not running the football. Even if they send a guy in motion, they're not running a jet sweep here. You know this. But the problem is, see how these guys are 6 yards back? That means that the line to gain is about 2 yards behind them. So if you want to move the sticks, you're going to be throwing right in this area right here. What's the problem? That is the area that is left wide open by this defense. You know, if you just move Nick Cross down, and you move Julian Blackmon down, if you want to go too high, okay, say you want to go too high safety, you move these guys down by 5 yards, heels at 12. That way they can read and react. They're actually in a position to make a move. Sure, it then leaves this part of the field wide open, and they could take the top off your defense. But if they want to take a shot on 3rd and 8, you've got a corner for every receiver except for this slot right here. And depending on who that is, you're not worried about him going deep. You're mainly worried about the X receivers going deep. I mean, and you know EJ Speed and Zaire Franklin are not the best cover linebackers in the world. I mean, we see it time and time again. The ball gets thrown over their head, and it goes for a first down. Every single time this season, we see it time and time again. These guys get beat on 3rd and long, and it's not necessarily their fault. It is because they are put in a bad position by Gus Bradley, because what are you doing having your safeties this deep? You're probably saying, if you're so smart, what would you do different? I mean, I'm sure I've already said a few things that their terminology is different, or I'm missing something, or I'm wrong in some area. But I'm going to show you what I would do different. Draw it up real quick. I'll show you what I'd do different. Now, what I'm going to do is not that much different than what Gus Bradley would have done with this personnel. I'm moving to a 1 high safety. Heels at the 12. Or heels 12 yards deep. Strong safety, 8 yards off the ball. I want him eyes on this slot right here. Our weak side boundary corner, he's manned up on that X receiver. Strong side boundary corner, lined up on the slot. You could flip this, or you could say you want your slot to go and cover the flat. You've got Kenny Moore as your slot, so it's not like he's a weak point. I mean, maybe you've got a size mismatch, but your strong side corner is Sam Womack, who's about the same size. So, depending on the personnel, you can switch this, but for the most part, this is fine. And then I want my Will and my Mac. I mean, this is the same zone they were probably going to run in that defense anyway. Just cover this part of the field as best you can. Keep your eyes on this tight end. He 100% could run a slant. And if he runs an out, he's going to be open. But if he runs a 5-yard out, he's going to be 3 yards short of the first down. You're going to have your linebacker there to come down and hopefully recognize that he's getting the ball. And then you've also got 2 more corners who can hopefully help. Eventually, they're not going to recognize it right away because they're going to be manned up on their receivers. But you've got some guys here that they can run to the ball. They have decent play recognition. They make good hustle plays most of the time. I'm not worried about a 5-yard out getting a first down. If they beat us, it's because their tight end broke tackles and we didn't execute right. And then, yeah, your free safety right here, 12 yards deep, just in case they're going to try and take a shot. You've got a corner on every receiver, or a DB on every receiver. So your free safety here, Julian Blackmon, serves as safety help over the top in case they get beat. Is this foolproof? No. There are definitely ways that we can still get beat. I mean, this area of the field right here is still very vulnerable because our linebackers still aren't great in coverage. But you've got a DB on every receiver. You've got eyes on this tight end. If the quarterback tries to run, okay, but that means that we put pressure on him, which is a good thing. If he wants to try and beat us with his legs, we've got our safety and our linebackers here to try and tackle him. Any way that you beat us, it's because we didn't execute. It's not because you were better. Whereas with the previous defense, it's because there was a big gaping hole right where the first down marker was. And just something I also want to say, when you've got players like Grant Stewart, and Grant Stewart comes in at certain points in the game, why are we not bringing pressure with him? Why is he not blitzing? Grant Stewart's number one skill, the thing that he is the best at, is running like crazy and blowing guys up. So why would you not put more pressure on the offensive line, force their running back in pass pro to try and block Grant Stewart? He's going to get blown up. He's not going to want to do that a second time. So the second time he has to block Grant Stewart, it's not going to be as strong as the first time. But you're going to get more pressure on the quarterback. He's going to have to reset his feet. He's going to have to move around. He's going to have to make a quicker read. I mean, we rarely see whenever it's third and intermediate or third and long and they come out in 11 or 12 man personnel, we rarely see Nick Cross drop into the box or at least come in closer when we move to a one high look. Why would you not do that? I mean, for as much crap as people give Nick Cross, he's missed 12 tackles all year, 8 tackles all year, something like that. He doesn't miss a lot of tackles. So why would you not want a guy in there who's a good tackler, runs to the ball, has decent play recognition? He can help bring the running back down. He can come in as run support. And if they throw the ball, if they want to pass, you've got eyes on one of the tight ends as opposed to just having your linebackers out in zone. Like, I honestly want Gus Bradley to sit down and explain it. I understand that his whole, you can get as many yards on us as you want, but you're not going to get a touchdown philosophy. I understand that with the Legion of Boom, because you have some of the best read and react defensive backs in the history of the NFL. I mean, these guys, when it comes to football IQ, when it comes to coverage, especially zone, even man because of their length, speed, and size, the best the NFL's ever seen. But you don't have that here. So why are you trying to plug in a system that does not fit these guys? I mean, you've got linebackers in EJ Speed and Zaire Franklin and Grant Stewart who are great run to the ball, run support, effort play linebackers. They play with their hair on fire. They run fast. They make tackles. Why are we depending on them to stop somebody from getting a first down? Why is there no safety help? Why are the safeties back so deep? Why aren't they dropped forward to help our linebackers who we know are not the best in coverage? I understand at a certain point it is on the players. As linebackers, all got to be better in coverage. You got to have better play recognition. I understand that, but they're not being done any favors. They're not being helped by the coaching staff here. Now, obviously, there's probably something I'm missing. There's probably something I'm getting wrong. I'm not in the NFL as a coach. I don't know. I'm just saying from where I'm sitting, from where I'm looking at, this is what I see. And if I'm an offensive coordinator, I'm taking advantage of that all day. And as we saw, they did. And this is a defense that has so much talent and pro bowlers and all pros and great players, but they're ranked in the bottom tier in the NFL in almost every defensive metric. You know what would help them? Bringing pressure with linebackers. Making the offensive line think in pass pro. Instead of, most of the time, they can just be safe and say, hey, these 4 guys are the only guys coming. That's all we got to worry about. Wouldn't it help if the holes that these guys open, especially our interior defensive line, if we just had a linebacker screaming through the A-gap? As far as our position coaches go, I'm fine with them. You've got a lot of old Colts who can hopefully reinstill the winning culture in guys, especially Reggie Wayne. He's a very good wide receivers coach. I think he's brought out the best in guys like Alec Pierce and Josh Downs, so absolutely we need to keep him. But I'm not in the room. You know, a lot of what position coaches do is in meetings and at practice. So unless you're there for the meetings and there for practice, you don't really know what a lot of guys are doing and what they're instilling. So it's hard for me to sit here and say this position coach needs fired and that position coach needs fired, because I don't have the whole picture. I'm just telling you from where I'm sitting what it looks like. Player-wise, I really like our core as people. We have a lot of solid individuals on the roster. They've helped the community here in Indianapolis, and they actually care about the city. But changes need to be made in this roster. We have a decent-sized free agent class. I'm not going to be mad if we bring back guys like Mo Alley Cox or EJ Speed, as long as it's for a fair price. But I'm not going to be super upset if they leave. Obviously, I'm going to be sad, because Mo Alley Cox, that's a really good blocking tight end that we're losing, and a vertical threat that we're losing. And EJ Speed, that's pretty solid linebacker. I know some guys don't like him, but he's a decent tackler, plays with a lot of effort and a lot of energy. If he can just put down the podcast microphone, he could go back to being a really good linebacker. But we need to get some new guys in here. We need to sign some free agents. We need to get some X-factor players. I would prefer to do it through the draft, because if you sign a bunch of free agents and you bring them all in, that can really mess up your locker room. So unless you get guys that fit your team culture, you don't want to just bring in people based off of their name or their stats. It's got to be about if they fit with this coaching staff and with their teammates. So I'd prefer to do it in the draft, because it's a lot easier to mold guys when you get them young, and then you develop them into an X-factor player. But that's a really hard thing to do. So unless we hit in the draft, we got to sign some of those guys. So we got to find guys who fit our culture and fit our team needs, and go get them. Spend some money, but also be conscious of the salary cap. Obviously, positions like linebacker and defensive back, we need some guys. And on the offensive line, I wouldn't be mad about getting some depth. But I mean, it's just time to stop running it back with the same stale roster with the same stale strategy. Let's actually build a culture in Indianapolis that represents our city. I hate to sound like the old dudes on Twitter, but we need to hold guys accountable. We need to have some grit and toughness to our players. I'm not saying we don't have guys that are tough and we don't have guys that are passionate. I'm just saying that some guys need a change of scenery, and we need to bring some fresh players into this roster and build a new culture of hard work and grit. We don't have to be like a copy of the Detroit Lions. We need to do something. We have to change. Obviously, some players are worth keeping. Our receiving core, I really like our receiving core. Michael Pittman Jr., A.D. Mitchell, Alec Pierce, Josh Downs, all those guys, pretty good. Obviously, A.D. Mitchell's a little raw, but with some time, he could develop into a really good receiver. Josh Downs, probably our most consistent guy. He's, in my opinion, the prototypical slot receiver. I think any NFL team would give a lot to have a guy like him. Michael Pittman Jr. had a down year, but he's still Michael Pittman Jr. I mean, he's still a threat to have a 1,000-yard season, and he's only 27 years old, and that's the oldest out of these four guys. So they all still have a lot left in the tank. And Alec Pierce, the Caucasian Comet, Reggie's white son, that's all I gotta say. Alec Pierce, he's a great receiver. We definitely need to keep him. A lot of people wanted him gone, but I think everybody knows now. I always believed in him, but I think everybody knows now. We gotta keep Alec Pierce. Jonathan Taylor, I would like to keep. I know some people think that he's reaching the end of his career, but he's still decently young. I think he still has a lot left in the tank. He's having his best season since 2021, despite missing 3 games this year. Instead of trading away guys like that just because we can get some draft capital, let's not shoot ourselves in the foot. We've still got some really good players. I understand you have to acquire some draft capital if you want to make things happen and bring in some new blood, but sometimes you got to keep some guys. And I feel like those are some guys we got to keep, along with DeForest Buckner and Grover Stewart. Those guys, they're not part of the problem. But to end this video off, I do want to talk about one last group of people. So far in this video, I have blamed absolutely everybody. I've blamed our general manager, I've blamed our coaching staff, and I've blamed players. So, it's time for me to blame one final group of people, probably the group of people who thought that they were safe this whole video. And that is the fans, because there are some of y'all that are at fault here for the culture that's been built around this organization and how you've responded to adversity over the past few seasons. Now, this doesn't apply to everybody, and this is just my opinion. I've made videos in the past talking about how people should and shouldn't be fans, so you can keep doing whatever you're doing regardless of what I say. This is just my opinion and some food for thought for some of y'all that are saying the stuff that you're saying. Mainly, I want to talk to the group of people who have the thought process of, you have to be good and earn my fandom. If for me to be a fan of your team, you have to earn it. You have to be good enough for me to spend my time and money and whatnot and whatever. Now, I understand if you're a long distance fan, okay, it's completely normal. You don't want to make a 10-hour drive or a 6-hour drive to come see a team that's terrible. Understandable. If you don't have a lot of money, you don't want to spend money on tickets. I was in that same situation for most of my life. I understand that. Completely cool. But for the people from Carmel and Westfield and the upper class Colts fans who are canceling season tickets and won't even buy any tickets to any games, saying they won't even watch games. You know what? I can understand you want to cancel season tickets. You don't want to spend any money to games. Okay, fine. Even though you have the money, fine. But you won't even sit down and watch the team play. You won't even sit down and watch a football game because the team isn't good enough. They haven't earned your fandom. How about you just never tune into a Colts game for the rest of your life? I don't care if they are Super Bowl contenders for the next 20 years or lose every single game for the next 20 years. If you quit on the team and then you're the same people saying, Andrew Luck quit on us, and Anthony Richardson needs to play through injuries, and this guy's soft, and that guy's lazy, and he's not dedicated, and he doesn't have the right work ethic, but you can't even sit down and watch the team? How are you gonna preach work ethic and calling guys lazy and saying that people don't do things the right way when you quit on the team as a fan? Arguably the easiest job in the whole organization, and you quit it. Now, just my opinion, but you can't call a guy lazy when you quit that easily. And I'm sorry, some of you grew up with Peyton Manning. You know what? I was too young to experience the Peyton Manning era. I grew up with Andrew Luck and T.Y. Hilton. I still had it pretty good. I saw the Chiefs come back. I saw us go to the AFC Championship. I remember going to school the next day, telling my friends, hey, they busted Tom Brady. They're going to replay the game, all that stuff, believing all that stuff. They're going to redo the whole thing. I was still very privileged as a Colts fan growing up because I saw some pretty good teams. But some of y'all, you're going back to the glory days and you're saying, where's Peyton Manning? Where's Marvin Harrison? Where's Reggie Wayne? Where's those type of guys? Like, you know what the type of glory days that you should be looking back on? Is when you were a kid and you didn't understand the difference between winning and losing. And you were just excited to go see the Colts play. You were excited just to have the opportunity to go in person and walk, whether it was the Hoosier Dome or Lucas Oil Stadium. You were just excited to have the privilege to have the money to spend on a ticket and walk into the stadium and see those guys in person, whether they were a good team or they were a bad team. That's the type of glory days that you should be looking back on. I don't care what era you grew up in, whether it was Eric Dickerson or Peyton Manning or Andrew Luck or the very young generation that is now growing up with Anthony Richardson. I don't care. Those are the type of glory days that you should be looking back on. You shouldn't be saying, oh, we're not Super Bowl contenders. Forget this. Oh, we haven't won a division title. Forget this. I mean, the same IU basketball fans who say that Purdue's conference titles don't matter are the same guys turning around and saying on Sunday, oh, well, the Colts haven't won a division championship since 2014, so they haven't done a good enough job. It doesn't mean I don't like you as a person. It just means that if you come out and say this stuff, but then turn around and quit on the team, that just isn't right. Like, that's just not a good thing to do. And I mean, especially with the younger generation of fans that are coming up, what kind of example are you setting for those people? What kind of example are you setting for young NFL fans? That when the going gets tough, you just quit on the team? Bandwagon culture is already bad enough as it is in all sports, not just football, across all sports. And you are making it worse. You are a part of the problem. I'm not saying, you should never quit on the team. I mean, imagine being a Browns fan during that stretch where they're going like 1-15, 0-16. You know what? That's understandable. But a lot of Colts fans, you've seen a Super Bowl in your lifetime. You've seen some of the greatest players to ever play the game of football in your lifetime. And just because, We've struggled the past few years. We haven't made the playoffs in 4 years. Boo-hoo. Like, there are some teams that haven't made the playoffs in 10 years. Look at the Buffalo Sabres in the NHL. They haven't made the playoffs in 11 years. I'm not saying that's okay, but the Colts organization is clearly trying. It's not like we have a situation here where ownership doesn't care and the front office doesn't care and they've given up on the team and they don't care. Like, Jim Irsay clearly cares. He just sometimes cares a little bit too much. And you know what? I'd rather have that than somebody who doesn't care at all. And I know that some of the stuff that I'm saying is going to turn a lot of people off from my channel, from this video. Quite frankly, I really don't care, because this is my opinion. You can take it and feel however you want about it. But if you're upset about it, chances are you're the type of person that I'm talking about. And I'm not perfect. I'll tell you, you know what? When we lost to the Jaguars, absolutely I questioned being a Colts fan. But then after that, I sat down and I thought about it and I realized, what kind of example am I setting? What kind of fan am I being? How can I sit on my couch and yell at these guys to give more effort when I don't even have the effort to just sit down and watch the game? Like, I don't even give the effort to look at the stats on Monday morning or care about what's going on within the organization. That's just my opinion. That's just how I feel. But I've seen a lot of people saying it. I've seen a lot of people saying they're giving up on the team, that they're not going to watch games, that they're not going to go to games, that they are done being Colts fans. And this is my opinion on it, because I've criticized everybody. So I'm going to criticize down to the last person, because who am I to sit here and criticize Chris Ballard or criticize Jim Irsay or criticize Shane Steichen when I can't even look at myself in the mirror and say this is what I'm doing wrong? Can't even look at somebody who's a fan just like me sitting next to me and saying this is what they're doing wrong. There are right and wrong ways to be a fan, believe it or not. Just because you find it enjoyable doesn't make it right. I mean, people enjoy bandwagoning. That doesn't make it the right thing to do. I mean, if somebody has any qualms, any problems with what I've said, with how I'm a fan of the Colts or whatever, they can feel free to bring that problem and talk about it in the comments. I'm open to talking. Obviously, I've made mistakes, I've done things wrong. We can talk about it. It's cool. If you feel that strongly about it, then you should be able to defend your opinion. Obviously, there are exceptions here. Like, there are good reasons to stop being a fan of a team. I'm just saying that when it comes to the Indianapolis Colts and the average person that quits on being a fan of this team, when you look at it in the grand scheme of things, they've been very privileged as a fan, and they have reached nowhere near the levels of pain other fan bases have been through to quit being a fan. But I know I'm very extreme. I mean, obviously, like, I'm wearing a Pierre Garçon jersey right now. I have an Andrew Sendejo jersey in my closet. Like, I know I'm very extreme. I'm a diehard. So obviously I'm going to look at it through a different lens than somebody who's a casual fan. So this is just my opinion. I'm not trying to attack anybody. I'm not trying to come for anybody. I'm not trying to discourage anybody from watching football. If you want to watch football, that's fine. Like, I don't care. You can absolutely say you're quitting on the Colts. I can't make you change your mind. I'm just saying that this is my opinion on the matter, and this is how I feel. Again, if anybody has any problems with it, I'm fine to discuss it. I've got nothing but time. It's cool. I don't care. Like, if you've got a problem with anything I've said, I'll talk about it. I'm saying that because I want people who disagree with me to actually talk to me. Like, I want to have a discussion instead of you just leaving being angry because I've upset you. Let's have a discussion about it. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm completely wrong and you can change my mind. That's cool. That makes me a better person at the end of the day. We're chilling. Like, why not? But anyways, I'm Limitless Pulls. I'll see y'all next time.
But you get the mix right, nigga, put it in the blender. Hell yeah, I'm Wingstop. Bitch, I'm selling chicken tender. It's like I get the beef from energy and water like Kimber. Hey, turning, looking like dinner. It's like I got the bag, boy or girl.